Have you ever tried to fit a ton of information onto one screen without making it look like a complete mess? Well, the Accordion is the classic answer. And today, we're going to take a deep dive into a really powerful, super customizable version, the B4XDaisyAccordion. Let's get right into a visual tour of what makes it so great. All right, here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with the basic concept of what an accordion even is. Then we'll get to know the B4XDaisyAccordion component itself. After that, we'll dig into its core behavior, all the cool styling options, and finally, how to actually put it all together in your app. So, first things first, the accordion UI pattern. Let's just make sure we're all on the same page about the fundamental idea we're playing with here. You know, at its core, an accordion is just a super clever way to manage your screen real estate. It's basically a list of headers that a user can click on to show or hide whatever content is tucked away inside. This keeps the interface feeling really clean and lets your users focus on just one piece of information at a time. And I guarantee you have seen these things everywhere, even if you didn't know what they were called. They are perfect for things like FAQ sections, complicated settings menus, or even multi-step forms. They're all about bringing a little order to what could be informational chaos.
Okay, so now let's talk about B4XDaisy's specific take on this. This is not just some simple UI element. You should really think of it as a complete control system for any collapsible content you want to build. The B4XDaisyAccordion is this specialized container that just automates the whole management of these panels. It's like a toolkit for you, the developer, that lets you define exactly how your accordion looks, how it feels, and most importantly, how it behaves. Now, the first and maybe the most fundamental behavior you're going to want to control is this. Can users open up multiple panels at the same time or just one? And this entire behavior is handled by one single, simple property. OpenOnlyOne. And notice that its default value is set to true. That's because it enforces that really common, focused user experience where only one section can be open at any given moment. So here's what that actually means in practice. When OpenOnlyOne is true, clicking on a new item automatically snaps the old one shut. Simple. But if you set it to false, your users can open as many sections as they want, which is actually perfect if they need to compare information between different panels. Okay, so we've got the behavior sorted out. Now let's move on to the fun stuff, the aesthetics. B4XDaisy gives you this really fine-grained control over the look and feel, which means you can perfectly match your accordion to your app's design. First up is elevation, and you control that with the shadow property. This is what lets you decide how much each item pops off the background. It gives your whole UI this tangible sense of depth and visual hierarchy. The main takeaway here is just how flexible it is. You can go for a totally flat, modern, minimalist look by using none, or you can create a really dramatic, layered effect with something like 2XL. It's completely up to you. All right, next up, let's shape the corners. Now, the rounded property might seem like a small detail, but trust me, it has a huge impact on the overall feel of your app. It can shift the vibe from sharp and technical to soft and welcoming in an instant. And once again, you have a whole spectrum of choices. You can just have it inherit from your global theme to keep things consistent, go with rounded none for those crisp 90-degree angles, or even use rounded full to get a super smooth, pill-shaped look. And finally, let's give our elements some breathing room. Proper spacing is just so critical for readability, and the spacey property gives you direct control over the vertical gap between each of your accordion items. Out of the box, that gap is set to 2 dips. But that's just a starting point. You've got full control to adjust this anywhere from 0 if you want a seamless, connected look, all the way up to 32 to create some really significant separation between your items. Okay, we know how to make it behave, we know how to make it look good. Now let's bring it to life. How do we actually assemble one of these accordions in our application? It really just boils down to these 3 simple steps. First, you initialize the main accordion component. Second, you create all your individual collapse items. And third, you just add those items to the accordion. That's it. The component handles all the complicated layout work from there. And this right here is the key method. You're just going to call add item for every single section you want to include. You pass it a B4Daisy collapse object, and the accordion just takes care of placing it perfectly in the layout. This is what makes this component so powerful. Behind the scenes, there's this base_resize event that's doing all the heavy lifting. It stacks everything vertically, it automatically resizes the container when panels open or close, and the best part? You don't have to do any manual layout calculations at all.
So let's just recap the big takeaways here. The B4DXDaisyAccordion gives you a really simple, straightforward way to build what can be a complex UI element. You get precise control over its behavior, its visual style, and its layout, all through just a handful of easy-to-understand properties and methods. You know, the real power of a component like this is that it frees you up to focus on the user experience instead of getting bogged down in implementation details. So the only question left is, now that you have the controls, what complex information will you make simple and elegant first?